Hello viewers, I welcome you to today's program on the Health Center with Ozion at Kunye. I am your regular host and anchor, Ozion the Expressionist, and today I bring you a special topic. A topic that most people may have never heard, but they have related with based on the activities around them. A topic that describes or stands for an agent of communication around us as humans. A topic that exists also in animals, but we need to know because it is also found in human beings, despite at a certain proportion. I bring you pheromone. What is pheromone? Pheromone is a chemical substance. A chemical substance, I would say, an invisible chemical substance secreted from the body that helps in communication of different issues, different factors. It helps in communication of sexual energy, desire, lust, confidence. It is an agent of social interaction. It is an agent of different forms of human communications, as well as in animals. Now, why do I mention animals? In animals, the tetratpods, including the reptiles, amphibians, mammals, most of them have this pheromone in a very larger and more pronounced quantity other than in human. And why? Because they possess a certain organ known as the pheromonasal organ in their olfactory path, that is in their nasal passageway, which exists at the upper palate, which is found within the nasal passage at the bottom of the nasal passage. The pheromonasal organ is also known as the Jacobson's organ. This is where we have a higher concentration of the chemosensory receptors that helps in synthesizing and transmitting the pheromone. Dramatically, this pheromonasal organ or Jacobson's organ is not in human. But human are said to have pheromones as well. And how? You may wonder. Because as much as in humans, humans do not have this pheromonasal organ. Why? Because the chemoreceptor, the gene that codes these chemosensory receptors in human are mutated and are non-existent. Those organs that helps in transduction of this information, they are mutated and non-existent in humans. That's why in humans, in their olfactory part, you would not find the pheromonasal organ. Then one may wonder, why is it then that humans have this? In humans, they exist from the steroids. Several steroid hormones have really been pointed at having this increased pheromone that helps in this communication in human. Because pheromones exist from a certain individual in a certain species to another individual of the same species. That is how the communication goes. So pheromone and its power has been existing over the years and centuries in all these mentioned species. The reptiles, the amphibians, the mammals, and then found in humans. Research has been ongoing by different authors and school of thoughts, and dramatically, evidences are there abound that there is actually pheromones. And how do they exist in human? They exist in human in different categories and ways, and the capacity or the extent or the scope of its manifestations in human are not yet exhausted. But I will list some areas that are already existing in humans. And in human, these are secreted from virtually every fluid that comes out of the body, be it the urine, be it the sweat, be it the nasal liquid or the nasal fluid or the eye fluid. And they are meant to be communicating more from odor. Yes, because in human, it has been found that at a certain stage of their life, those transitioning age of puberty, that human beings communicate more as well via odor. It doesn't mean that we all smell. Oh yes, but it does not mean that everyone will perceive your odor just exactly the way it is. How does this translate? It sounds ambiguous. Now, look at it. Every individual has his or her distinct smell. That when you have a father, a mother, siblings, every individual among them has his or her own smell that will be identified by those who are very sensitive or have an increased pheromone. Pheromone helps you that even if your sibling, loved one, is dead for a long time, anytime the person's cloth passes through, you'll be able to detect that, yeah, Jane was here, Ike was there, Raymond was here. And it becomes very distinct, unique, that no other person shares that. Is that all about pheromone? No. Pheromone is actually that chemical, invisibly, that transmits certain kind of fluids that are not seen in a room where you have stayed for a long time. For example, a woman's sexual cycle of period comes up on the second, third, fourth of the month. And because she stays in a certain room, lives in a certain house, there is this concentration of pheromone of that particular person. That even if the person walks out and another person comes in, there is a communication that happens between them. That might be surprising, but that is why when a woman who stays in this room has a new visitor who comes to see her at the reproductive age who still has a cycle, it will affect the person's cycle that after some time of the person staying in that room, their cycle will be occurring at just the same time. It's a disruptive agent. The communication will alter your behavior and you begin to see the same time with their host. Because your host's pheromone has dominated the environment you came in. Whether you can resist it, or depending on your degrees of pheromone as well. And then, in some other communication will be willpower, but that will be discussed later. For now, because of what? Where will willpower play a role? Because it is equally involved in your sexual energy. Very powerful pheromones attract sexual attention. It's equally involved in social attraction, confidence, lust, desire. These are the roles of pheromone that at a certain point, researchers have been able to use this to produce a certain kind of perfume called that pheromone. Now, when you wear pheromone and pass, individuals sensitive to that will look around and want to perceive that more. It's the science of pheromone that helps them, the pathophysiology that helps them to be able to produce that. Is this a mirror? Is this just a fast? No. Where else can you find this besides the evidence I've just given about your cycle? Pheromone is that ectohormone that transforms two individuals living in a room for some time and have the same kind of, and equally have a kind of communicate with another hormone besides the ectohormone, what I call hormone. If they are communicating with another hormone or another communicating agent, for instance, love, you will see them transform and resemble each other. For instance, couples, pheromone. Yes, couples living in the same room at some point change to resemble each other because of the kind of pheromone that they exude. Pheromone are steroids that exist or emit from your body, and in human beings, they are concentrated more on the axillary buds. In humans, there are no veromonosal organ because in those animals, the reptiles, the mammals, the amphibians, they have the veromonosal organ inside the nose. And that is what helps in synthesizing and transmitting these chemoreceptors. But in human, there's absence of this veromonosal organ because the coding agent is There is no coding agent. It's already mutated in humans. And that is where the difference is in humans. The absence of this pheromonal organ or the Jacobson's organ is what makes it like a mystery in human. Why do humans have this when they do not have this? It's because the gene that codes this pheromonal organ is mutated in human and is non-existent. But while we secrete our different fluids like the urine, sweat, and every other fluid in our body, they transmit from that. That in male that have higher steroids like the androsterone, in women that have higher steroid like the androstenone, these communications are more powerful than the other individuals and affects the individuals. It comes in different ways. These are a few areas that pheromones have been pointed at. There are other areas where pheromones have been exchanged and they equally function in human. But there are still several studies ongoing about pheromone. But it is important that we know this about the periods of women. It is important that we know this about the resemblance of people. It is important that that's the trans resemblance. It is equally important that we know this about certain other communications that goes on around us. In the environment where we stay, there is this concentration of the invisible chemical that emits from our body that alters another person's behavior, even when the person is unwilling, unless you bring a different power of the will in some areas, not when it comes to your period, no, and not in some areas like when you come to the sexual energy, attraction, those might be working on you and you'll be resisting with a different degree of willpower. But that is yet to be found. That to what degree would you? But that of sexual energy, yes, because you need a control to be able to excuse yourself of any action in terms of sexual irresponsibility. But they exist. But why you're human is that you have to take charge of certain things. Thank you, because I would not like to continue to explain everything about pheromone, which this research about pheromone is still ongoing. But for now, I remain your regular host and anchor on your favorite health center on the internet, the Health Center with Ozion at Kunye. And I am Ozion the Expressionist. Remember, at Kunye, we do not prescribe medications, we do not prescribe drugs. We only teach you what is generally helpful for your health. To know about the diseases, whatever conditions that affect your health, symptoms, complications, and contraindications, so that you'll be able to know how to treat when it goes. And that's what how to treat, provided it is not about prescriptions. Thank you for listening to us today, and thank you for listening to me, especially your host, and have a good day.